Out with the old, in with the new. Today, we're replacing my current controller. My current controller is a few years old, and it's on its last leg. It's ready to be retired. It's got so many parts that need changed. I might as well just build a new one at this point. So, say goodbye to the controller that I never gave a name to. And say hello to the new victim. That's kind of creepy. No. And say hello to the controller we're going to be working on today. Let's get started. Okay, we're gonna jump right into this and start with the soldering. It's a fairly standard soldering process. There's nothing too crazy I'm doing here. The only thing that may be different is the MXR. I've been running MXR for years, along with a standard L. With R, I do all the sliding, like wave dashes, wave lands, ledge dash, all that stuff. And then with L, I do pretty much everything else. It allows me to still analog L cancel on L, because I only have a short trigger plug in there. The reason I have been using an MX trigger on R is because I've just had hand issues for years, and I needed something easier to press. The hand issues are not from overuse, but from just like bad posture and stuff, and I finally got that corrected in physical therapy. But it was pretty demoralizing not being able to play. Even just working on controllers would hurt my hands. So I guess what I really want to say is oftentimes we take our health for granted, especially when we're young, and we don't realize how good we have it to have a functioning body. So appreciate your body, appreciate your health, try to take care of it. Some wisdom from an old man. Next, we're moving on to the rumble bracket. It was originally designed by firecc.com is where you can find the design. And you can see me using my soldering iron to heat the inserts. And this gives the screws a thread. Makes things a bit more durable than just straight screw to plastic, as the plastic can wear out. It's been slightly modified by me. Instead of cutting off the slot for the digital board on the trigger, I just took it off of the model, so it will just print without it on the right side because I use MXR. This is the first time actually using this kind of bracket on my controller, and honestly, it's been a dream to work with. I'm not fighting the fucking rumble bracket constantly to stay down or to stay in place. I don't need to hold it, it just stays there. And you'll see further in the video why that comes into play. That'd be tragic if I wasn't recording. The next thing we're working on is just preparing the stick boxes for the magnets, because the Phob uses the magnets to read your stick movements. Now I had a whole clip showing myself lubricating the stick boxes and cleaning them and all that. I forgot to hit record. So that footage is lost to time. One little trick is I like to put a little dab of super glue on the bottom part of the screw head. And that helps just reinforce the stick box a little bit more, because on Phobs, they don't have the potentiometers on the sticks to help reinforce them and hold them into place. So the screws can get a little loose. Also, the top of the stick was a little bit loose, so I used a little bit of washi tape, and I've found that's a really good way to create friction to hold it down. And I ran out of stick box footage, so we're just going to move right on to the triggers. So I have an MX trigger in the right, and I like to replace the original roughly, I think it's 65 gram spring with a 98 gram spring, so it's a little bit harder to press, but you get a quicker return. And then you'll see me using heat shrink as I'm soldering the wires onto the switch. This helps reinforce the solder joint, because as the wires get twisted and turned and moved, it can weaken the joint and the wires will eventually rip off. So you either need hot glue or heat shrink to reinforce that. And then these ergo triggers are by Handheld Legend. And it's my first time working with these, and I wanted to test them out on my own controller. So it took a little bit of experimentation with the cutting and all that to get them to work with the MX trigger. On L, I'm lubricating the trigger using the dry silicone lube. As you'll see, I'm using a paper towel instead of a cotton swab. That's because I ran out of cotton swabs during this video, so I had to use paper towels. For the spring, I'm using the Cardosi spring. It brings the trigger press from like 150 grams down to about 100, roughly. I feel like this is a nice middle ground between making the trigger easier to press, but your returns aren't so sluggish that you get caught in shield. So that's what I like to use on my personal controller. And it looks like we've overflowed into the notch footage, so let's start talking about those. You can see that I'm using a notch guide to get started to make things a bit more even, and just really helps get the spacing you would want for a notch. This notch guide was created by Slam Duncan, someone who was very helpful to me a few years ago. They donated a lot of time and energy to helping me learn to notch and answering my questions, and it was very kind of them. They're working on some other projects now. They're not really working in the Gamecube controller space, but shoutouts to them. And I apologize for going off camera. It was very awkward to hold the front shell out that far while I was notching because I like to hold it closer to me normally. I'm going for full firefox notches because I am a filthy fox player. Filthy fox player with filthy notches and fucking reprehensible Z jump. I will say I really enjoyed notching this controller, not because it's mine, but because I got into such a good flow and just being present in the moment. I was really just enjoying it. And in my personal life, I'd just been feeling so burnt out on everything and just tired all the time. This really reminded me of the mindset that I need to cultivate in my day-to-day life of just being present and just fully engaged with the thing I'm doing in. That's a phrase. And being fully engaged with the thing I'm doing. Yeah, this notching session was almost it was a very zen moment for me. And just a good reminder. I'm really happy with how these notches turned out. I've been playing with them for the last few days because I'm doing this voiceover later, and they feel great. My old controller, the notches were just so worn down that I was missing wave dashes a lot or firefox angles pretty frequently because I could barely feel them. So I was just ever so slightly off. Yeah, it's amazing what refreshed notches will do for your gameplay. That's the initial testing of the notches after the shaping, seeing where some improvements could be made to make the notches feel similar. Ideally, you want them to feel as uniform as you can. So now we're in the phase of test, file away more plastic, shape the notch a little bit more, smooth things out, get everything feeling really nice. Once I've got everything feeling about how I would like it, now it's time for the sandpaper. I like to start at 3000 grit to really sand away the marks from the notches and really just smooth everything out, make it look nice, feel nice. And then you step it up to 5000 and finally 7000. And then the silicone lubricant will make another appearance on a paper towel. I like to spray it into a Q-tip as that gives me more control instead of just spraying the shell. It kind of just gets everywhere. And these are Handheld Legend buttons and a button pad, also made by Handheld Legend. And as of recording this, I'm waiting for replacement buttons to get here because the color scheme just didn't work out like I had originally thought it would. So that's why you're seeing these green buttons as opposed to the white that you saw in the thumbnail. And you will see me swapping out the button pads later in the video. Probably. Onto the reversed Mouseclick Z. Now the reversed Mouseclick Z requires a couple of 3D printed parts where you insert one of the parts into the shell. It allows you to reverse the side the button is on. So the mouse click switch sits where your finger would be fully extended. Versus on a regular Z button, you have to kind of curl your finger to press the switch directly. And I rocked that on my old controller for about a year and a half. My implementation was so bad though, that I expected it to break within a few months. And it lasted the entire time. I didn't have to fix it once. But I had a hell of a time getting this to work on this controller. Just from trying to route the wires and get everything to sit correctly. I'm not super happy with the end product of how it feels when I use it. So I'm actually going to switch back to regular Mouseclick Z, and we'll be showing that later in the video. As of recording this, I have yet to do it, but we'll get there. So we can cut the reverse Mouseclick Z short because I fumbled with this stupid thing for so long. So long. It's such a pain to work with. I'm not gonna do it again. Don't even ask me to do it. I will not do it. And the implementations just seem so unreliable because the wires get smashed, and there seems like no good way to route it through the controller without that happening. So don't even ask. Now we're at everyone's favorite mod, paracording. I'm using my hot air rework station to remove the plug. A lot of people use a heat gun, a cheap heat gun they get off Amazon or from Harbor Freight. And that works okay, but it doesn't quite have the temperature control you need to really dial in the temperatures to get the plastic off without introducing any cracks. But the hot air gun does get the job done. Hot air rework station does do it better, but not everyone wants to spend the money on that just for a paracord. And I have other uses for it. So we're stripping away the rubber, adding a little bit of super glue, and then waiting for it to dry so the copper shielding doesn't peel away. So we cut off that rubber tip. And then we get to inching the paracord across the cable. And it's ever so slow. I'm gonna take the time to say, I really dislike paracording. It's long, it's tedious, it's hard on your hands. It's just the worst. Then I like to use the lighter to melt the paracord strands so there's no chance of it fraying. And you'll see me using some sandpaper on the plug. That's just to get rid of some of the oxidation built up on the plug, make it look a little bit nicer. And then since I cut the cable to make the sleeving process a bit easier, I have to recrimp the ends of the wires, and these wires will go into a terminal that plugs into the board. And there we go, paracord cable. And we're coming upon the part where I initially finished the controller with the reverse Mouseclick Z, the handheld Legend button pads, and the green buttons. Those are gonna be swapped out, so video not over. Not over yet. I did decide to make some changes on the controller. I couldn't quite nail the reverse Mouseclick Z, so I decided to take it out because it was just causing issues and it was such a pain to deal with, and I decided I don't want to deal with this standard. I don't want to deal with this mod anymore, so I just switched back to a regular Mouseclick Z. I did attempt to print my own, but I couldn't quite get the alignment right with the mouse switch and the button. So after fiddling around with that for a while, I gave up and I did use a Gosser Mouseclick Z kit. Get me through for now. It was a very easy installation and it's been working pretty good so far. So thumbs up on that kit. I also didn't like the button colors matching with the shell. It looked a lot cooler in my head. So I did end up buying some white buttons from Handheld Legend, and they seem to fit the paracord and the color scheme a little bit better. And I did end up not liking the Handheld Legend button pads. Some of it was made worse because the controller wasn't closing quite right due to the reverse Mouseclick Z. So they did feel a little bit better once I took that out. But the B button was still a little mushy. And while I liked how easy they were to press, I just didn't like the feel of the B. And that pretty much covers the whole process of building this controller. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you like the video. Again, check out mayhem.shop. I do have some really cheap fobs up for sale right now, so if you're in the market, go check them out. Thanks for watching.